you should make sure that the environment you're in is actually conducive for learning. We can start with a prayer. Any volunteer to lead us in an opening prayer for today? Yes, Tonila Kampa, you can pray.
Let's humble ourselves and pray. Oh Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the gift of life and all that done for us, Lord. We pray that as we go in this biology lesson, let us understand, let us concentrate, Lord, and let the information stay in our minds because it's a gift of wisdom. Lord, bless the works of the teachers' hands and let them be blessed every day that they live. And Lord, we know all this lesson is going to go well. Let us not get distracted. And Lord, let us understand, Lord, in this lesson. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you so much, Tonila, for that powerful prayer. Okay, today I'm going to lead lesson. And last week, we finished the second part of nutrition. That's what we looked at last week, the second part of nutrition. And that was nutrition in animals. The first part was the one where we looked at nutrient compounds. If you can remember, the carbohydrates, the starch, the proteins, the vitamins, the mineral ions, those ones were in the first part of nutrition. Then the second part, or the second subtopic, was nutrition in animals that we finished yesterday, last week, which had things like digestion. You looked at how the different food nutrients are digested, and of course, we shouldn't forget the reasons why digestion is necessary, right from its definition. Then you looked at the process of absorption of food, how food is absorbed into our bodies. And once that food has been absorbed, then we also looked at what happens to that food after it has been absorbed. In other words, how is it assimilated into our body tissues? We looked at that. Then from that, we looked at digestion in ruminants, those animals which have a 4-chambered stomach, like the cows and the goats. We looked at that. Then you also looked at nutrition in molds, and we used the bread mold as an example. So understand for now, you know how molds feed, and you know the difference in their mode of feeding from ours. Then of course, you know that for us, it is internal digestion, but for those molds, it is external digestion, that the nutrients are digested from outside and then absorbed into the body. So today we are starting on the last part of nutrition, that is the nutrition in plants, or the third subtopic, nutrition in plants. Now, under this nutrition in plants, or we can say nutrition in green plants, it is important to prepare ourselves on what we are going to look at. So in this subtopic, we are going to define the term photosynthesis. So we are going to define photosynthesis. Then we are going to list the factors that affect photosynthesis. Then when we finish that, then we look at the sites, or the site where photosynthesis takes place in a leaf. Then you also look at adaptations of the leaf to carry out the process of photosynthesis. So those are the most possible objectives that we're likely to cover by the end of today. So I'm saying we're going to define photosynthesis, then we're going to list the factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis, then we're going to state the site where photosynthesis occurs in a leaf, then we're also going to state the adaptations of the leaf to carry out the process of photosynthesis. Then also we shall look at the products of photosynthesis and their importance. So those are the objectives of today's lesson. Well, then we can now launch into nutrition, these plants. So of course, nutrition in plants occurs by a process called photosynthesis. So this is how nutrition in plants occur. And if we need to learn to define what photosynthesis is, we have to first split this word to small digestible words, and that is photosynthesis. So the word photosynthesis has two words. It has the word photo, and then it has the word synthesis. So it has the word photo and it has the word synthesis, photosynthesis. Photo means light. The word photo means light. Then the word synthesis means to make. So it means we are making something here, but using light. That is what it means. We are making something here, but using light. So that is photosynthesis. We are making something, but using light. Therefore, if we are to define this photosynthesis in green plants, we shall simply say the process by which green plants make their own food using sunlight energy from two raw materials, carbon dioxide and water. But the energy used is trapped by a pigment called chlorophyll that is found in the chloroplast of leaves. And in the end of it all, oxygen is released as a byproduct. So it means here, we are going to make sugars or food from carbon dioxide and water using sunlight energy trapped by chlorophyll. And also oxygen will be released as a byproduct. So meaning that here, we have from that definition, we have two raw materials and we also have two products. And we have some conditions that must be met there. Now, if I may ask the girls, what are the two products of photosynthesis and the two raw materials of photosynthesis? I want someone to answer both questions at once. I want the two products of photosynthesis and the two raw materials of photosynthesis. Yes, Karin?
The two raw materials photosynthesis are carbon dioxide and water, and then the two products are starch and something else. And I think energy, I don't know.
Okay. You have the products, right? You have the raw materials, right? Let me get another person to give us the products. Yes, Charity.
The products are food and oxygen.
The products are food and oxygen. Then if I may ask, the food that these plants are making, they're in which major form? In which major form is the food that the plants make?
Sugars.
Sugars. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the two raw materials are carbon dioxide and water. Then the products are two. We have sugars and oxygen. Well, now these sugars, we need to ask ourselves. Sometimes we say starch, sometimes we say sugars, sometimes we can even say sucrose. We can even say glucose. What exactly is it? Or even sometimes they can say carbohydrates. Because when you look at this picture here, you can see that it is showing that the plant is going to absorb water from the soil. Then you also absorb light from the atmosphere, carbon dioxide as well from the atmosphere. Then at the end of it all, you're going to make carbohydrates and oxygen. So here they're saying that they are carbohydrates. Well, now the plant makes carbohydrates. It even makes proteins, by the way. And sometimes some plants also make fats, as we shall say. But the major product that these plants make are the carbohydrates or the sugars. And these sugars are in form of glucose. So meaning that the immediate product of photosynthesis is actually glucose. That is the immediate product of photosynthesis, glucose. But however, this glucose can be converted to other forms and stored. So the product is glucose, the immediate one is glucose. Then this glucose can be converted to other products and stored. And the products or the format in which glucose is stored is called starch. So photosynthesis does not result into making of starch immediately. No, it is instead the glucose that is made. Then this glucose is going to be used for other mechanisms that are taking place in the plants. Then the other remaining one will be converted to starch and stored there. So for us, when we go to when we eat these plants, when we eat some of the things in these plants, then we extract the starch from them. Okay, there is a question coming in my chat. They are saying that they said photosynthesis takes place in green plants. What about the other plants? Do they also undergo photosynthesis? Well, generally all plants are green, except a few plants which may have some reddish color. There are some plants which have reddish color. Now, what makes these plants green is the chlorophyll that they have. Then what makes other plants look red? On top of the green chlorophyll, they can have another light absorbing pigment which does not reflect green. It reflects either red or orange, but it also has the green chlorophyll pigments in it, in its leaves. So here for us, why we emphasize that in green plants, because almost all plants are green in color. But those plants that do not appear green, they also have some light absorbing pigments. They also carry out photosynthesis, but the pigments that they use are not chlorophylls. They are not green in color. So they are also there, a few. But for us here, we are only focusing on the green plants. Yes, Alison. Alison, ask your question.
I'm asking, is carbon dioxide also a raw material?
Yes, it is.
In form of carbon or just carbon
gas.
dioxide?
Is carbon dioxide the gas?
Yeah. No, in form of carbon.
Now I'm getting confused. What is your question exactly?
Is carbon dioxide a raw material in form of carbon or as carbon dioxide?
Carbon is different from carbon dioxide. So when you say carbon dioxide in the form of carbon, I get confused. It's like saying water in the form of hydrogen.
Okay.
But it is carbon dioxide, the gas.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay. Lisa?
Teacher, maybe what I can say about maybe her question is that when the plants take in the carbon dioxide and they give out the oxygen, does that mean that they have reduced the oxide from the carbon? Because
Yes.
it's carbon plus oxygen then to make carbon dioxide. So
yes.
okay.
In chemistry, that is a reduction reaction. Okay, so, but they are saying that this process of photosynthesis is not as simple as we look at it in this definition, in this equation here. It is something which is very complex, but we can summarize the entire process in just one equation. That during photosynthesis, we add carbon dioxide to water using sunlight energy trapped by chlorophyll to make starch and glucose. So this is the equation for photosynthesis. So I've seen questions asking students to state or to write down the equation for photosynthesis. I've seen those questions. Now, don't be scared by this chemical equation here, the second equation. Don't be scared by it. If you can't write it as it is, you're always free to write the word equation. Biology is not chemistry. So in chemistry, they would want the second one. But for us in biology, feel free to write the word equation in once. That carbon dioxide plus water, you get glucose and oxygen. Then now people now are going now to get to start asking very strange questions, not related to what we are talking about, what we're looking at. Now, what Simon is asking, what makes tomatoes red, carrots orange, and other fruits with their specific colors? For us, we're talking about photosynthesis that takes place in leaves. We're not talking about the colors of oranges or the colors of carrots. But there are reasons why they appear the way they appear. But for us, we're looking at photosynthesis. And we know that photosynthesis takes place in leaves. So all your questions should be directed to the leaves and the photosynthesis. Okay. Then, for photosynthesis to take place, there are certain conditions that must be fulfilled. We shouldn't just take it that as long as we have water, as long as we have carbon dioxide, that the plant will always carry out photosynthesis. No, that is not always the case. For photosynthesis to take place, certain conditions must be fulfilled. And there are two conditions that must be fulfilled for photosynthesis to take place. And these conditions are light and temperature. Now, these conditions that must be met, they are very, very important in driving the process of photosynthesis. And we have to learn, or we have to take note of their importance. That if we say that for photosynthesis to take place, light must be present. Now the question is, what is the role of light in the process of photosynthesis? Well, we know that light can come from the sun, or it can even be electric bulbs. It can even be from electric bulbs. You've seen people growing plants in closed houses. Now, this light that is trapped by chlorophyll has two functions in the process of photosynthesis. The first role of light is this equation here. That equation you're seeing. That water, the raw material for when the roots absorb the water, then light energy splits this water molecule into two elements, into two molecules, hydrogen ions, and oxygen as well. Hydrogen ion and oxygen. So it means that light enables this water molecule to split into two molecules, oxygen gas and the hydrogen ions. This oxygen is the one that is released as a byproduct. That oxygen is the one that is released as a byproduct from this equation here. So this oxygen is coming from water molecule. That oxygen there. Then these hydrogen ions and are now going to be added onto carbon dioxide to make the glucose. So the hydrogen that remains is the one they put on carbon dioxide to make our glucose. So therefore, you can see that in the equation for glucose, we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The carbon and the oxygen, these two, carbon and oxygen, are coming from carbon dioxide. Then this hydrogen is coming from water. Now, the oxygen in the water is not one in the glucose. The oxygen in the water is this one, the one that is released by as a byproduct. Because I've seen questions asking that what is the source of oxygen in glucose during photosynthesis? The source of oxygen in glucose during photosynthesis, this one here. So this oxygen, its source is carbon dioxide and not water. I hope that one is clear. So that is the first role of light, that it splits the water molecule, release hydrogen ions and oxygen. Then the hydrogen ions are ones that combine with carbon dioxide to form the glucose. Then the second role of light, is that it provides the overall energy for the process of photosynthesis. Also, the entire process of photosynthesis needs some light, needs energy. And this energy is the one that is got from light. So these are the two roles of light during the process of photosynthesis. I've said the first one, splitting a water molecule to give us hydrogen and oxygen. Then the second one, providing energy for photosynthesis. Okay, then the second condition that must be fulfilled for the process of photosynthesis to take place is temperature. These plants are very temperature sensitive, that for photosynthesis to take place, first of all, the temperature must be optimum. If it is too cold, it's not going to carry out photosynthesis. If it becomes too hot, also they will not carry out photosynthesis. But the temperature must always be moderate. And what is the role of now temperature in the process of photosynthesis? Temperature affects the enzymes that control this process of photosynthesis. By the way, the entire process of photosynthesis is controlled by enzymes. If you thought that it is only animals that have enzymes during the digestion of food, then you have it wrong. Plants also have very many enzymes, and some of these enzymes in plants carry out the process of aid in the speeding up of the process of photosynthesis. And because all enzymes are affected by temperature, also temperature affects these plants when they are carrying out photosynthesis. So these are the two conditions, light and temperature. Okay, I'll respond to one question inbox, that is if it is about photosynthesis. Someone is saying that, teacher, can green flowers carry out photosynthesis on a plant? Now, I'm going to answer this. Miss Laura is asking that, can green flowers carry out photosynthesis? I'm just going to answer you in this way, that any part on a plant that has a green color can carry out photosynthesis. I hope I'm clear. Any part on a plant that has a green color can carry out photosynthesis. Why? Because what is making that part green is because it is having chlorophyll. And we know that chlorophyll is the one that traps light for photosynthesis. Okay. Then Bolani is asking, you said that immediate product of photosynthesis is glucose. So when they ask us to give, okay, let me read it clearly. Teacher, since you said that the immediate product of photosynthesis is glucose, so they ask us to give the product of photosynthesis. Do we write glucose or starch? Now, if they ask you to give the product of photosynthesis, glucose is the best. Glucose is the answer. But if you write starch, it is also correct. So you can write any, but glucose is the most correct. You can say glucose, you can say starch, you can say sugars, you can say carbohydrates. But glucose is the most appropriate answer. Okay. Blessing is asking, does the light from a light bulb have the same effect as that of light from the sun? Yes, it does. It does. Then Sasha, I wanted to ask why they haven't posted. This one is asking why they haven't posted the recordings on the group. Now, I think today I'm going to post the first 2 parts of nutrition that we have covered. I'll post the first 2 parts that we have covered today. Okay, that one we shall post. Okay, Teacher Milton, how is your inbox?
Yeah, yes, Arthur, can you hear me?
Yes, how is your inbox?
Okay, I think there are 2 questions I was trying to respond to. The first question was, can green flowers carry out photosynthesis? Then there is another good question here that from Blessing.
Milton, we have lost you. Milton, I have lost you. Okay. I think you also got the same questions that I saw. I thought maybe you have different questions. Teacher Milton, we have lost you. Teacher,
there is
your inbox.
I think it is the same questions which you have already responded to.
Okay.
Then Sauna is raising her hand.
Yes,
Sauna.
Lisa.
Yes, teacher, I was asking that do germinating seeds, do they use oxygen to make their food, or they also use the same thing, carbon dioxide? Because we see that leaves they use carbon dioxide, then germinating seeds they use oxygen. So I get confused there.
Okay. I will answer you, then we proceed. Well, photosynthesis is carried out by plants which have leaves. So a seed, during germination, it doesn't have leaves. Therefore, it means it doesn't carry out photosynthesis. What a seed uses, seeds have food that is stored in them. That's why you eat most seeds. You are stealing from the plant. You're stealing the plant's food. So when plants are germinating, they don't carry out photosynthesis because they don't have leaves yet. They don't make enough food apart from using the one that is already stored in them. So seeds don't carry out germination, photosynthesis, until they put on leaves.
Hello, Arthur.
Yes.
Okay, maybe just to let her know, probably we shall do respiration at some point, but germinating seeds use oxygen mainly for respiration, breaking down the foods to give it energy for germination. But they start carrying out photosynthesis when the green leaves start appearing, or when the green pigment actually starts appearing. Sometimes even the cotyledons, when they turn green, in the initial stages, some photosynthesis can take place. Sorry, I went off before I completed. I don't know if you handled that question, which came.
Yes, it seems we are seeing the same questions. I thought that maybe they were directed to different cohorts.
All right, it's fine.
Okay. Okay, then we can proceed. Well, now we're going to look at after knowing that photosynthesis takes place mainly in leaves, then we have to ask ourselves, what makes these leaves so special that they can carry out photosynthesis? And these are the adaptations of leaves to carry out photosynthesis. Now, we shall divide these adaptations into external and internal. In other words, externally, when we look at the leaves externally, what special features do they have that enable them to carry out photosynthesis? And these are...
Arthur.
Yes?
Michelle is still raising her hand. I don't know whether she has a different question.
She has
Michelle,
lowered,
ask your question, please.
She has lowered the hand.
Okay.
So one of the first, the first external adaptation is that when you look at these leaves are broad and flat. When you look at these leaves, they are broad and flat. So what is this helping it in the process of photosynthesis anyway? Now, the broadness ensures that it has a large surface area. So it means that the whole of this surface area is available for maximum absorption of sunlight and taking in carbon dioxide. So that is the first adaptation, that these leaves, when you look at them, they are always broad and they are always flat to increase surface area for absorbing maximum sunlight and also carbon dioxide gas. That is the first adaptation that we look at. Then the second adaptation is that the leaf attachment onto a stem. Also, how leaves are attached onto a stem matters so much. When you look at this stem, for instance, when you look at how these leaves are arranged on this stem, you notice that these leaves do not shade each other. These leaves are not shading each other. They are not shading each other. That when light is striking, in case light is striking here, when light is striking, you notice that all leaves have greater chances of getting access to light. All the leaves have greater chances of getting access to light. All of them, because of the way they are arranged. None of the leaves are shading the other. So this kind of arrangement is sometimes described as a leaf mosaic arrangement, a mosaic arrangement. But none of these leaves are shading one another. Then also, when you look at look at this one here. Look at this plant. Are you seeing that beautiful arrangement of those leaves? Now, it is not that this plant wants to look beautiful, no. The main aim is that at least each leaf has access to light. That's why you see this plant is trying to arrange its leaves in this mosaic pattern to ensure that at least each plant has access to light, that no leaf is shading the other. So this is what they mean by leaf attachment onto a stem. Then another adaptation is the thinness. Most leaves are thin. They have a very thin lamina. Now the thin lamina provides a small diffusion distance for carbon dioxide to easily reach all the photosynthesizing cells. When you look at under structure of flowering plants, you must have looked at the internal structure of a leaf. And we know that when carbon dioxide diffuses or enters these leaves, this carbon dioxide has to saturate and reach the cells. So the mere fact that these leaves are very thin, that improves or that increases the chances or the speed by which all the cells within a leaf can get access to the carbon dioxide. Then the internal adaptations, so these ones are mainly the external ones from the outside appearance of the leaf. Then what of inside? What are those things that are inside the leaf that make it better adapted to carry out the process of photosynthesis? The first one is the presence of the chloroplasts. The presence of the chloroplasts. And where are these chloroplasts found? This is the internal structure of the leaf, this one here. So look at this. You notice this one here is the upper part. This is the upper layer. So this is the surface of the leaf. Then this is the lower part of the leaf. So sunlight hits directly from the upper surface. So this is how the sun hits this plant. So how does the sun then, now when you look at this plant here, you notice that this upper part here, the one that is appearing green in color, of course, the reason why it is appearing green in color, it means it is that which is having chloroplasts, which have chlorophyll for photosynthesis. So these cells here, the one we call the Palisade Mesophyll cells, they have very many chloroplasts that trap sunlight energy for photosynthesis. Now, the mere fact that this layer is positioned on the upper epidermis, on the upper part of the leaf, that puts it in the best position to receive maximum sunlight for that process of photosynthesis. Otherwise, you imagine, suppose this layer was below. It means light will first have to pass through these other layers, also these others, until it reaches the lower part. And in that process, some of the light might be lost through shading. So the mere fact that these leaves, that they have the Palisade mesophyll layer on the upper surface, makes them better adapted for the process of photosynthesis. Then another adaptation is that the Palisade mesophyll cells are compacted below the upper epidermis to trap maximum sunlight. Look at these ones, these cells here. No space in between, very compact, to make sure that almost all the light that wants to pass through this layer to the lower part is absorbed or is trapped by these chlorophyll pigments in the Palisade mesophyll layer. So those are the first two adaptations of the internal adaptations of the leaf. Then the second adaptation is that the spongy
Arthur,
yes.
I think we can split those two into three, which you every day. The first one, for example, they can talk about the many chloroplasts, whether it is in Palisade or spongy mesophyll. There are very many. Then the second structural feature there is the location of the Palisade cells on the upper side. So those are two, which you can split. So that from those 2 points, we get 3 points actually. Many chloroplasts to maximize on absorption of sunlight energy. Then the location of the Palisade cells on the upper side, so as to expose the chloroplast to sunlight energy for maximum absorption. Then the third one is the one that is below. You get it, huh?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Ayokia's hand up.
Ayoki, question?
Yes, teacher. I have a number of questions, but my first question is, the different plants vary in the amount of food they need. Like you find that some plants can take up a small amount of soil and they still grow. Then others need a huge place and still their roots go far. Then my second question is deciduous trees, these trees that shed their leaves. How do they make food after after that time? Because I know of trees that shed their leaves and then during winter, and then after that when spring comes they sprout. I mean, like, yeah, their leaves come back again. So what helps them during that season since their leaves are gone? And then also you said cold temperatures affect the rate of affect photosynthesis. So how do they make food during that cold season?
Okay, thank you so much. I'll start with the last question. How does temperature affect the rate of photosynthesis? It can either increase or slow it down. So it means when the temperature is very low, then the rate of photosynthesis will also be very low. So it means that those plants during those cold conditions, yes, they carry out photosynthesis, that is if there is light. But however, the rate at which they are carrying out that photosynthesis is very, very low. Then the second question about deciduous plants that shed off their leaves. Yes, it is true they shed off their leaves, but before they shed off their leaves, they make enough food and keep it and store it in some parts. They can store it in the stem cells, they can store it in the roots. Then when they shed off those leaves, they stop carrying out photosynthesis, but now they start relying on the food, on the starch that they had stored in their storage cells. Then the first question,
Oh, I was saying,
the
how
first
do
one.
they, yeah, how do they vary? I mean, do different plants vary in the amount of food they need? Because you find big plants, small plants, and then some taking up a small piece of land and others a lot. Yeah.
Okay, first of all plants, they make more food than they need. All plants make more food than they need. But when they make that food, when they make the food, they use a small portion of it to grow and also to carry out respiration. Then the most huge excess, they keep it in some parts. They keep it elsewhere. They can keep it in the stem, like for sugar canes. They can keep it in the roots, like for sweet potatoes, etc., etc. So whether some plants need more food than the other, that one, I'm not so sure, but the fact is all plants make more food than they need and they store the excess in some other parts of the plant.
Okay,
So now those ones that maybe have, those ones that have maybe extended roots, now those ones may be adaptations, maybe to look for water. Maybe you may find in the soil where they are growing, there is no water. So find those plants having extensive roots to look for that water. But it may not be related to the photosynthesis. Okay, Lisa?
Yes, teacher. Do pests, like maybe a plant that has been affected by pests or a disease, does it affect photosynthesis?
I don't know where that question is coming from.
But what do you think?
You can help me.
No, I'm posing the same question to the student. What do you think?
Maybe to help her, we could look at pests like caterpillars of insects. When they feed on the leaves, how does it affect the process of photosynthesis? Are you still there, young lady?
Yes.
When you have assuming rats are pests, and then they feed on parts of plant leaves, or you're looking at insect caterpillars that feed on plant leaves. How do you think that will affect the process of photosynthesis?
Maybe since they may make holes in the leaves and they won't be able to like trap sunlight.
Then you remember the first adaptation the teacher gave us. They say broad, flat, wide. So when they feed when they eat part of the leaf, then it means they're reducing on the surface area of the leaf, isn't it?
Yes.
So when they reduce on the surface area of the leaf, then it means they're going to that is going to affect the overall process of photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is going to be reduced quantitatively. I don't know whether it helps answer your question.
Yes, thank you.
3 more hands.
Thank you so much, Teacher Bima. I think let me first finish these slides, then we shall entertain questions towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. You first finish.
Okay. Then the fourth adaptation is the presence of veins, the presence of the vesicular bundles in these leaves that aid in the transportation of food and water within the leaf. So when you look at these leaves, they have very many veins. These veins are actually the phloem and the xylem. If you can look at the first picture, this one, the vesicular bundle, actually they are the veins, these veins here. So their presence helps in the transportation of the food that is made, and also the water that is required during the process of photosynthesis. So that is the fourth adaptation. Then also another adaptation or another reason why these leaves carry out the process of photosynthesis efficiently is the presence of stomata. The presence of stomata on the leaf lamina. Stomata, they are small openings on the leaf lamina, on the epidermal layers of the leaves. There are those small openings. Now, those small openings are the ones that allow in carbon dioxide. Remember, carbon dioxide is the raw material for photosynthesis. So the mere fact that these leaves have these chloroplasts, then that makes them better adapted to carry out the process of photosynthesis. But also they are saying these stomata, did I mention chloroplasts? Now, these stomata, on top of allowing in carbon dioxide, they also control the passage of water vapor between the air and the leaf. Because if the leaf gets water, goes from the roots, this water can also be lost through this stomata here. So this stomata would close so that we don't lose that water. Then we put that water to better use.
Hello, is it only me missing?
Pardon?
Okay, I was not hearing the voice.
Okay. Then another adaptation is the presence of a wax cuticle. On the upper surface of the leaf, the upper surface, like this upper surface here, there is always that shining cuticle, that shining layer. That shining layer is what we call cuticle. It is waxy, it is like jelly, like petroleum jelly. So what is the importance of this layer? That it waterproofs the leaf so that it doesn't lose that water that it needs during the process of photosynthesis. That one there. Okay, I think we can use the remaining time to answer some questions. So these are the adaptations of the leaf to carry out the process of photosynthesis. Or maybe these are the things that make the leaf better adapted for the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so Teacher Milton, I think you've been taking care of the chat room.
Oh, yes.
Okay, then we can ask some hands.
Maybe before it comes.
Maybe those who are raising their hand.
Yes, Abima?
Yes, kindly go to the previous slide where you are talking about I think the veins. Will you kindly go there? Yes, this last point, we could split it into two. We know in the veins, we have the vascular system, that is vascular bundles, that is the xylem and the phloem. So they could split those into two so that they get two separate marks. We have the xylem for transporting water, then phloem for transporting manufactured food. Because if this was in a question, then they gave this one the score mark for the vein, then half probably for the functions there, rather half for the function. So we can split it into two. I don't know whether you get my point.
Yes.
So that in the vein we have the xylem, which transports water from the roots, from the stem to the leaves for photosynthesis. Then we have the phloem, which transports the manufactured food from the leaf to other parts of the plant.
Make it 2 points.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, somebody is asking a question in the chat box that she doesn't understand the meaning of waterproof. Joanna is asking what is waterproof.
Okay, do you want to answer or you can respond?
Okay, maybe Joanna, quickly, waterproof means, it doesn't let out water. Just imagine plants were letting out water on the leaf surface. So because of the waxy cuticle, it's able to conserve its water. So the water is only lost through the stomata. But on the upper surface of the leaf, it is waterproof. So waterproof simply means no water gets out through that part. Like if you say you have a waterproof mobile phone, that means you can go inside the water with your phone or a watch, or it can be anything. So it's not affected. Water cannot get out or water can get in. That's what it means by waterproof. And that's
there is actually why she always smears herself with jelly every morning.
Yeah.
You realize that if you don't smear yourself with jelly, your face gets pale. Why does it get pale? It means that your skin is starting to lose moisture. And when your skin starts to lose moisture, your face appears pale. You kind of get some small wrinkles on your face. And what you do, you realize that when you smear yourself with jelly, you feel some sort of relief. Why? It is because now that jelly is going now to block moisture from coming out of your skin to the atmosphere. So that is the same principle that these plants use. Only that for them now they have their natural petroleum jelly or the natural jelly, which is that waxy cuticle. Then there is a very good question in the chat. Someone is saying that, teacher, don't chemicals sprayed on plants affect photosynthesis in a way that it blocks the stoma or damage the chloroplast, something like that? Well, that is very brilliant. Chemicals, even the dust, can block those stomata. And when they block those stomata, it means that the leaf will not take in carbon dioxide. And if the leaf doesn't take in carbon dioxide, then it will not carry out photosynthesis. Also, some chemicals or even the dust itself can come and completely cover the entire leaf. And when they cover the entire leaf, then it means light cannot penetrate to go inside the cell, to go inside the leaf. So light fails to penetrate to reach these chloroplasts here. And hence the leaf will not carry out photosynthesis. Okay, we can respond to the hands. Rona. Rona?
Yeah, let's have Rona. Rona, unmute, please.
Excuse me, teacher, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you and the baby as well.
I was asking that you said that chlorophyll is the green pigment in leaves, right? So there are some leaves that I've come across and they are not green. They are like maroonish and like other they don't have other green parts on the plant. So like, do they have chlorophyll to carry out photosynthesis, or like they don't carry out at all?
Well, they have another pigment that they use to trap sunlight that is not green chlorophyll.
Okay, we have Susan. Susan, unmute.
Teacher?
Yes.
Teacher?
Yes, please.
I was asking that if the stem is the one with chlorophyll, does it do the same function as the leaves?
Susan, I don't know who has muted you, but I answered that question clearly. I said that any part on a leaf that has a green color can carry out photosynthesis. I hope that one was a very straightforward statement. Any part on a plant that has green color can carry out photosynthesis. For you, if you see that it is the root which is green, then you know that it is carrying out photosynthesis. If you see it is the fruit which is green, then you know it is carrying out photosynthesis. If you see that it is the flower which is green, then you know that it is carrying out photosynthesis. Yes, Chebet.
Someone was asking, do flowers also carry out photosynthesis? And my answer was that some flowers actually have green, you know, some flowers are green, like when if you Google what we call bougainvillea, it is a common flower in our compounds. Even at school there in Gaza High School, there are very many. You find that its corolla actually is it's green in color. So it is able to carry out the process of photosynthesis.
Anything that is green on a plant. Then we can go, Daphne. Daphne, ask your question.
Yes, teacher. If you apply Vaseline on a leaf, are you blocking the stomata or you're not?
You are. You block the stomata. And actually, Daphne, that is why when you look at this, this picture of the leaf that I have displayed here, yes, you realize that there is no cuticle on the lower epidermis, because that is where the stomata are formed.
Okay, Joanna's hand is still up.
Yes.
Otherwise, if this waxy cuticle was also on the lower epidermis, then it would have blocked the stomata. That's why you see that there is no stomata, there is no cuticle on the lower, because it can block the stomata. So the wax cuticle is always on the upper surface.
Yes, so members,
Teacher.
our time is fast spent. It's 34.
I think time is the first spent.
Yes.
Excuse me.
I just a summary, Joel.
Yes, please.
Okay, girls, thank you, Arthur, for the lesson. But I just want to summarize that when is then a question on photosynthesis, the first thing that I normally ask
On the
students
surface of a leaf.
is write down the equation. So in the equation, there are two raw materials, which you have seen, carbon dioxide and water. There are two requirements. We saw sunlight and chlorophyll, and there are also two products. That was carbohydrate and oxygen. So girls, I think that is very important for you to note that two raw materials, two conditions are there, and two products. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Girls, our time is fast spent. I think the technical team has warned us. I don't know if
Yes, because this discussion can carry on till forever.
Yeah,
Okay, have a nice day, dear girls.
All right, thank you.